All right, let's bring back our legal panel. Kerri Urbahn is with us, along with Jonathan Turley and Leo Terrell. Jonathan, let's start with you. What do you make of the immunity arguments at the court this morning and this idea of, well, you can't give a president complete immunity because there are likely some things that a president could be prosecuted for, but you give some sort of limited immunity, and how do you draw that line?
Well, I think there were points in this argument that should be viewed as quite positive for the Trump team. First of all, you had roughly 4 justices referring to sending this back for further deliberations. If they do that, it's hard to imagine the trial judge getting a trial before the election. And if Trump is reelected, you might not have any trial at all. But the argument went along the lines of what many of us had predicted. That is, the justices seemed equally uncomfortable with the sweeping arguments of the Trump team and the sweeping decision by the D.C. Circuit. I thought the real haymaker of the argument was delivered by Chief Justice John Roberts, who was openly mocking of the D.C. Circuit, which had this awful standard where they said, well, a president can be prosecuted effectively when he's prosecuted. That is, they had this line that suggested that the fact of prosecution meant that the acts could be prosecuted. And Chief Justice Roberts legitimately said, but what type of standard is that? I mean, don't we have to have something more? All of those comments would suggest that there are justices sort of groping in the dark here for a middle road where there might be some immunity for public acts, official acts, but not for private acts.
Really interesting analysis there, Kerri. And I felt like I learned, as we were all listening to this together, a lot from the questioning from Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch. And it was his questions that were followed up by Amy Coney Barrett, Ketanji Brown Jackson. They all referenced back to them. What was your takeaway?
I was struck by the, I thought, extreme positions of both sides.
Yeah.
You have Donald Trump, who is arguing absolute immunity for all official from criminal prosecution for all official acts, and then you have the Department of Justice arguing zero immunity. And I thought to myself, well, how can a president function if they have no immunity whatsoever from criminal prosecution for their official acts? And Brett Kavanaugh, who I worked for when he was going through his confirmation process, I thought he raised some very interesting points. He talked about how troubled he was for the trajectory of the American presidency if they were to side with the Department of Justice's approach, which is this, zero immunity, this posture. And, I was also struck by DOJ's argument that, well, don't worry about it because prosecutions are not politically motivated. We take oaths about that kind of stuff. And I thought, how can you possibly say that, given what we are all watching happen in New York? And secondly, the person who made that argument was on special counsel Bob Mueller's team, which we all know what that was, a 2-year, $35 million investigation that was driven by politics and failed.
Yeah. So, Leo, the argument really comes down here, too. It seems that the court is considering was trying to challenge the election, a public act or a private act. It's like a president might have immunity from ordering drone strikes against the heads of terrorist organizations. But if the president poisons his entire cabinet because he doesn't like them, that could be considered a private act. So where in that pantheon does challenging the results of an election fall?
Well, I'll tell you, you had the Trump team talking about the challenging of the election as an official act. You also heard him make reference, the Trump attorney talked about President Grant sending down federal troops to Louisiana. So I think he made that argument. But I want to be very clear. You notice the difference, the quality and the richness of the arguments that you heard on the Supreme Court level? Professor Turley mentioned the reference that John Roberts had about the appellate court. I mean, it was generic. You had very detailed analysis over the last 2 hours. And I'll add you another point. Justice Barrett raised a little nugget about the issue of state prosecution, whether or not the president's immunity goes there. I hope the trial judge in New York heard that. The one critique I would have against the Trump attorney, you never waive a rebuttal argument. And I heard that when he did that, I was shocked. You always have the last word. He abandoned that last word. Shame on him.
Jonathan, what did you think of that?
Yeah, I tweeted at the same time. I was quite surprised. I've never seen a rebuttal waived because there was a lot there still on the table. I thought that the counsel for the special counsel was really struggling at points, and at others he was able to eke out some good solid ground. That's your chance to come in there and to hit hard without any rebuttal coming from the other side. So I was surprised by that. I also have to echo the view that of the counsel for the special counsel, Dreeben, who said, the protection here is basically we're the government, we're here to help you. I mean, that's basically what his argument was. His argument was, we're the Department of Justice, perish the thought that we would ever go after someone for political purposes. And that led people like Alito and others to go, whoa, okay, now you got a long history of some pretty sordid, horrible stuff. And he wasn't even referring to the Trump years. And sort of counsel sort of backed up a little bit on that. But the point of the justices was still a good one. They said, we don't really like to base the status and stability of the presidency on we're the government, we're here to help you.
10 most terrifying words in the English language. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help you. Panel, stand by, because we've got a lot more to talk about, and the court will be back in session in 33 and a half minutes. So lots more to talk about this afternoon.
And always a chance the former president could talk on his way back in. We're watching it.